My name is Ghost Wolf. I am making a video of building a Mongoose Ripcord. I took it apart to bare frame, and now we're going to rebuild it. So first off, we're going to start with the forks. The top bearing. You always got to remember to check your bearings. Make sure they're not broke. We'll grab our pieces. You don't want to over-tighten it, because if you over-tighten it, you will break the bearings on the bottom and on the top. So you got to watch pretty much what you're doing. That's tight. You can also use a pair of channel lock pliers. You want it tight, but not too tight. And we're going to add the handlebars. The handlebars on next. You got to line it up in the hole just right. And you also have to make sure it's straight with the fork. Which I think, as soon as my camera person gives me the thumbs up, that's when I'll tighten it down. I'll make sure it's tight, it's straight. And I gotta wait for the thumbs up. I got the thumbs up, so we're gonna tighten these puppies down with the proper tools. You could do it by hand, but preferably use either a pair of pliers or use the proper wrench, which I think would be probably a 9/16, or in metric it's 14 millimeter. So tighten this down. Tighten it down. Make sure that it doesn't move when you're riding, so it doesn't affect your riding or anything. Okay, those are almost properly tightened. A couple more turns on the wrench, and now we will mount the seat with our seat post mounting clip, or bracket as I like to call it. Put it on the frame, push it down to where it won't go down no more. And we have our seat and seat post. I didn't want to take off the seat, but we push it down and tighten it in. Make sure it's centered, which that you can tell by if you line it up with the handlebars. And you tighten it with the Allen wrench that I just showed. And make sure the seat post is raised up to your height, which I'm 6'1", so I need to get fairly tall for me. Okay. Proper. Tighten down with the Allen wrench where the seat post doesn't move. And once the bike is completely built, we'll make our last minute adjustments. I'm just putting it together at this current second. So So we'll flip the frame over, and here comes the crucial part. We're going to put on front tire, mount the put the front rim on the frame. We're not going to tighten it down until the other one's on. And we have our crank. Which you need your bearings. And check your bearings often to make sure that the other bearing and the pieces to tighten it down. We have our chain, master link part. So the bearings of the cap, and put this onto the crank arm and make sure it's properly on the threads. That way you don't strip either the threads or the part you're using it to tighten down. Crescent wrench, tighten down the other two pieces. It's pretty much like a puzzle. You got to figure out where everything fits. Because if you have the puzzle mismatched, then you're going to have to start all the way from step one. That's properly secured, but if you leave it, you got to leave it at least a little bit loose. That way it moves freely, and that way you don't pop the bearings. The bearings inside. And slide the little stopper ring on, and then a little hexagon-shaped nut. And then tighten it on. Put it on finger tight at first, and then we'll use the crescent wrench down there to properly tighten it. We'll properly put it on and tighten this up. Put the pedal on to secure it, to make sure it. I'll finger tighten it for a few seconds, and then properly I'll use a 15 millimeter or a 5/8 wrench. Either one's preferred. Make sure your pedal's properly tightened down. Make sure the crank turns freely. You might have to double check it to make sure that it is properly tightened, but yet not too tight. So you might want to loosen it just a little. Tighten this a little. And there we go. Tighten the nut back down to proper, and it'll move, the crank will move more and more freely, but yet will still be tight to the frame. And then, next step, we have our chain. Which consists of a master link, and we'll properly put one side on the other side, and then we'll properly clip it, put this piece on, and then clip-on. There's the link clip-on so that other piece don't fall off when you're riding and the chain come off. And you will get quite a nasty wound if you're not practicing proper safety procedure. We'll mount the back tire. Make sure it's onto the frame. Push it up. And put your chain onto the freewheel or coaster brake if you have coaster brake. On. Make sure both of them are on to their proper spot, onto the teeth. And then push the tire back till you have at least a little bit of slack. You don't want the chain tight or it'll snap, which I've had that happen to me before and resulted into a bad injury. So make sure the tire does not touch either side of the frame. Tighten it down properly. And I will show you what a coaster brake is in a minute. As soon as I tighten down the front rim, I'll go fetch a coaster brake. Tighten down your front one down properly first by hand. Then push your chest onto the tire. That way the tire, it doesn't wiggle when you're tightening it. And we are almost done. We have one more thing to do, which is put on the two pegs in the back. Put on your pegs. Just properly screw them onto the frame. Now, bolt-ons are a little different. Bolt-ons you'll require to take the nut off, put it in a ratchet with an extension, and properly put down the other one. And there's two. But this bike in particular, has 4. So grab the other two, and then put them onto the front. And this is the finished product. This is what the bike becomes. Now we'll do our last 2-second adjustment. Use a 14mm because as you can see the handlebars aren't centered. So we'll have to loosen them up and put it right at the center. But you hold the tire properly down, and then hold it, and then tighten it. And then you might have to make another adjustment afterwards. And that is quite set. That's centered. Do one last tighten down to make sure it's all properly done. And it didn't do last minute. Check, tighten down. And it is properly built. As I was explaining with the bolt-on, you have to use a 15mm to put the nut into this thing, put the peg onto the stud, and then tighten it down. And coaster brakes are a little different. grab one. Now, a coaster brake has this arm that you tighten down to the frame, and I have a piece with the proper bracket. You gotta tighten it, put it down on the frame, and tighten it down. And because if you pull back, it stops. See? I can't move the freewheel. I can't move it, but I can move it. I can move it and then stop the brake, and that's how it works. And peace. This is Ghost Wolf signing out, and thank you for watching my video of me building a bike back from bare metal.